¿Qué ondas, primos?
Primas
y primes.
Welcome to my
Primos.
My Primos
Primo
Podcast. Welcome to the My Primos podcast.
My name is Freddie.
My name's Kevin Garcia.
My name is Elia Maria Matriz.
My name is Jonavina.
This is Chikume, whenever I can make it.
My Primos podcast discusses all things fandom and pop culture,
From comic books,
Movies?
To whatever obsession we have this week.
but with a Latine
Malatine.
perspective. Remember, we're all primos,
We're all primes.
Primas.
Primos.
no matter what part of the world we're from.
¿Qué onda, primos, primas, y primes? Welcome to My Primos podcast, where everybody is a primo, and we're here to talk about everything. I love that we have an intro now, so I don't necessarily have to do the whole intro again. Plus, whenever Freddie's not here, it's never as cool as when he does it. My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'm one of the regulars, although I've been off the last couple episodes, and now I'm here not alone, because we're with a friend of the show. J Gonzo, professional artist extraordinaire. Gonzo, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, I mean, welcome to the show. I've never done this before, so.
Oh,
yeah.
You know what's funny is I run into you so many times at conventions and stuff. I'm just like, you know what? Let's do this. So you're on the show now.
Yes.
We're going to need to have you back on the show so that this will have been retroactively relevant.
Back
okay?
on the show. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to have to, for sure.
All right. So, Gonzo, I've been a fan of yours for quite a bit. I remember first through Tata Rambo and then through a lot of your own individual stuff. But could you tell us a little bit about some of your career in comics and as an artist?
Oh, okay. I mean, well, as an artist, I just, drew my whole life like every other comic book artist, right? When I should have been doing math homework, I was doodling and drawing and stuff. Went to the Orange County High School of the Arts for Fine Art and decided I didn't want to do that. Like, I saw what the kind of the gallery scene with the fine art world look like. Also, I grew up in Los Angeles, so like seeing my friends be broke artists in LA did not seem particularly appealing. So I got a degree in graphic design, still continued to illustrate. I had a couple of friends who got into comics, like, as inkers and as pencilers. So I kind of was on the periphery of comics from about 1998 on, so like I knew people, I was always trying to get work. Whatever job I had, I would still take time to go to San Diego every year with my portfolio or, following up on emails, talking to people or phone calls back then in 98. Like not everyone had an email.
You could actually reach people by phone. It was crazy.
Yeah, like literally writing letters and send like mailing off samples and shit, So I was doing that. I'm sorry, what is your tolerance for profanity? Do I need to watch my language or does it?
So the show has no problem with profanity at all. I personally, and that's kind of an ongoing joke, I don't cuss in public.
Oh, okay.
I've been a teacher for many years and I'm a public speaker. So I've kind of trained myself to not do that. And the few times where it's like almost come out, Freddie gets really excited. Like, oh, that's the thing that got to him. So yeah,
nice.
Feel free to cuss.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I mean, I spent so many years, I worked in tattoo shop. So yeah, I got my degree in graphic design because I thought it was like, it used to be called commercial art. So like, I can do art and make money. So got a degree in that. And then as soon as I got my degree, I like learned how to tattoo. I did that for years. And then I had a kid and I went and got a job in graphic design. I kicked around advertising for like 20 years. And then at one point I ended up working for Todd McFarlane, doing graphic design and advertising stuff for him, which really kind of lit a fire, and it got me connected to like other comic people, like more than just my friends. Like, so when you're trying to break into comics, knowing other artists is great, but they're not going to be able to help you. You know what I mean? Like people are always like, hey, get me a job with Marvel because I do work for Marvel now. And I'm like, I don't like. I'm
always like, that. Like you were there once, so you could get me.
Yeah, exactly. Me recommending you to my edit, like literally, it's the same as you emailing him. So here, just email him. He'll ignore you just as much as he'll ignore me. So I have no pull there. I just do. And I said, so yeah, we can get to the Marvel thing. So yeah, so I was kicking around comics. I worked for Todd McFarlane. When I left there, I had a project that I'd sort of half started when I was with McFarlane, and I was like, I want to do that thing because I'd spent so much time working on it. So I filed off the serial numbers, so it was no longer a Spawn project, and I created La Mano del Destino. Yeah, like I that was actually like kind of started. Go ahead.
I want to get back to La Mano because I love that book. I love your art. I love that. I remember that you showed me the concept art before you had it, and it blew me away with like the heads and stuff. The Olmec heads. But before I get to that, I want to kind of backtrack a second. So you're talking about when you were starting out, as a young man, as an artist, you push yourself and draw between classes. I I was just talking to somebody earlier today. I was a very prolific artist in high school. Like I still have my art. I'm really proud of the work I did. And then, you're saying like you didn't want to like do that. You want to see where you can make money off it and stuff. Well, I got to an impasse when I was like 18, 19 years old. And I was like, well, I could either try to focus on writing or I can focus on art. And I'm like, well, my art, I'm proud of it, but it's really competitive for art, but I think I have a better shot as a writer. And I just focused on writing and it's paid off there, but my art skills have atrophied. And it's like, I have to retrain myself how to draw again. And it's just, people are like, why don't you just draw your own comic? I'm like, because it would be like a panel a year. It's just not going to work out too well. Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to say is you said fine arts wasn't for you. My grandfather was was an artist. Like he was a painter and he did etchings and stuff. And he would constantly critique my work because my work was inspired by comics. And he'd be like, real life doesn't have outlines. Stop drawing outlines. And I was like, well, I mean, this is a superhero. But okay,
the high school of the arts really, the high school of the arts really did not like the idea of comic books. Like, I went to high school in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was there from 88 to 92.
Especially the 80s and 90s. That was, it was basically art. Speaking. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was lowbrow, garbage culture, along with like pro wrestling and rock and roll, right? Like it wasn't art, right? So they poo-pooed the idea, and that like I didn't internalize. Like I had no problem doing garbage art. Like I'd always, I always like trashy things. Like I'm fully willing to engage with and indulge my own bad taste, and
fair enough
on a personal level, and sometimes professionally, but. I mean, and kind of what Lamano becomes is an homage to disposable commercial trashy art. Like it is like
I can see that.
What's it called? Because it has validity if it has a message. Like I often say that I learned more about personal responsibility from Spider-Man than I did from 7 years of Catholic school. Right. Like, so, there's a validity in that.
I'm going to jump in and say the same thing. People are like, well, where do you get your morals from? I got my morals from Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Sailor Moon. I latched on to those morals that became part of who I am. And sometimes I'll watch something that kids today will grow up with. And I'm like, the morals are different.
yeah, definitely. Well, so anyway, yeah. So I didn't really like, I just didn't want to be broke. Like I spent a year, like my parents moved from LA to Phoenix in 92, and I stayed in Los Angeles for another year trying to make it on my own, trying to go to college and trying to like, at that point I was like really into music. So I was playing, I was trying to like learn as much about music as possible, still drawing, but I spent a year in Los Angeles being broke, like really poor. Like I lived out of my car for a while. I lived out of motels for a while. Like I've been broke. And LA is just a bad town to be broke in. And so I decided like, hey, the idea of like being creative and having a 9-to-5, like a job and a salary or a paycheck and all of that, like seemed very appealing because I knew that like kind of corporate America was never going to be for me. Like I was never going to, be the head of accounts receivable at a shipping company or whatever. Like it's just not like, it was never in the cards.
I know exactly that feeling.
Like I was, it's like at about 13, I was looking down the barrel of adulthood and I just said no. Like I was just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I stubbornly thought I could skirt the edges of it with these kind of marginalized positions that are sort of on the up and up, and not really. And being a professional creative as like a graphic designer, it seemed like something that I could get my head around. It's something I took to very well. Something I've been pretty good at. Like I worked my way from like designer all the way up to like creative director at a small agency for a lot of years, like 7 or 8 years. Like I had Don Draper's job for a minute, like corner office, secretary, staff, all of that. Like I did that. Like I was nominated for, creative director of the year. Like, that's not all to say. Like, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but like I was pretty good at it. Right. But it was unsatisfying. I just walked away from it all.
I gotta say tooting your own horn is not, that's a weird euphemism. They're not where I meant to go with that. It's not a bad thing in this industry because like that's something I have to learn to do is be able to like push myself, and it's hard sometimes because like I'd rather promote other people, but in this industry you have to let people know here's who I am and here's what I've done and here's what I can do. And I think there's nothing shameful about it, especially when you have done things to be proud of. It's really cool.
I mean it's more a credibility thing for me because everybody nowadays like watches 5 online videos and then suddenly they're a graphic designer. I'm like, no, I have a degree, and I spent 30 years doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I recently I've been arguing with people about this rebrand. I was proposing for the Arizona Cardinals and trying to frame it in the more like functional frame as opposed to an emotional one, and people just don't know how to take that. So, and it is like, the better part of my job when I was creative director was kind of selling non-creatives on creative, right? Like, you have to teach them like why it works and as opposed to what it is, because everybody's just like, oh, I don't like purple, or no, I don't like, big, whatever. Like, I don't like yellow, or I think, like everyone thinks that it's just a bunch of like, me playing with the crayons, and everyone wants to play with the crayons, when it's really about strategy and implementation and consistency. And those are the real unsexy part that really make it effective, because ultimately at the end of the day, like when you're a graphic designer, you're selling efficacy, like you're selling solutions to problems. That is the difference between art and design. Anyway, like I was doing that.
Sexy, but being successful is sexy.
Yeah. I guess, it's the hard work. It's the part no one wants. Like everyone thinks that, everyone thinks that like, I just have epiphanies and it all flows out of me, like leaps from my head, like Athena fully formed. Like, it's like, no, it's a lot of like pushing pixels around and iterations. And like, I've had sheets of, a logo where I'm trying to figure out like one particular line on the logo, and it'll have like a matrix of like, here's where I'm just making it thicker, and then here's where I'm making it longer, and I'll have every iteration of here's thicker but longer, and longer but thicker, and like every this it would make the average person just go blind looking at these like 64 this grid of 64 marks, trying to make a decision over which one's going to be most effective, and then I'm like, hey, this like column A row 13 is going to work, but I need to cut in some ink traps here or whatever. Like it's all about like that really technical, because I came from a day of when we did graphic design, we were cutting amberlith and we were waxing down PMTs. It was a very physical, precise. And I think that the computer might have made people a little lazy because it's so easy to get somewhat, get some precisions and stuff. So anyway, I did that for a long time. I was tattooing and doing that, or I was doing that while I was learning to tattoo. And then I tattooed and did freelance graphic design until I had a kid. And then I got a job in graphic design at an agency, worked some agencies around town, worked my way up. And then I got a job as a senior art director for Todd McFarlane. And that was really when I left there, I kind of still wanted to get into comics. So I was taking my portfolio around, and this idea I had of like this these luchador pages I had done were what everyone gravitated to. Every editor I talked to was like, oh, what is this? And then Dark Horse was like, hey, maybe we want to do this as a series. Can you get us a full issue and an outline of the other issues? Like what the rest of the story is going to be if it's a mini series. Like, okay. So I did that. Dark Horse ultimately passed, which was honestly a blessing, because the guy who would have brought it in was kind of not someone I would want to be associated with anymore. So I'm glad he didn't pick me up.
Fair.
Yeah. So, but I had all this work. I had a whole issue and a plan, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it myself. And I talked to a bunch of other editors, maybe taking it to like Oni, maybe taking it to Image, what have you. And ultimately, like Bob Schreck pulled me aside and was like, dude, this is really cool. You should just self-publish it. And like he was like really adamant about it. And then I went to my friend Larry Martyr, who created Green World, who was a friend of mine. Used to work with him at McFarlane. Yeah. And I was like, man, Bob Schreck really pushing me to like self-publish. And Larry's like, hey, you should. And like Larry's like drawing a picture, not really paying attention.
Beanworld's a classic. That guy knows what he's talking about.
Beanworld's great. I highly recommend anyone who wants to figure out how worlds can work should read Beanworld.
Yeah, I read that when my early days of getting into indie comics. Beanworld was one of my gateway drugs, I guess. It's
deceptively simple, but if you can get your head around the narrative world building, and I hate to say world building because that's something that kind of has become cliche, but like the ecosystem. Yeah,
people
there we go. There's the word I want to use.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
The ecosystem. Like if you ever want to build a fictional ecosystem, read Beanworld. So, but anyway, I was talking to him, and he was kind of like casually like, yeah, you should kind of. And I'm like, I don't know, man. What if I this? And he's like, oh yeah, you'll figure it out. Like I asked him other questions, and then he finally put down what he was drawing and just made direct eye contact. He's like, look, you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out. If you have questions, you can call me. I was like, oh fuck, I can just call Larry Martin. Like I self-published for like 20 years at that point.
I like that, you were curious, like, should I self-publish? Is it a good idea? And it's funny, when you and I were younger, a lot of that self-publish, like indie comics are one thing, but in general, self-publishing was often looked down upon, right? Mm-hmm. But now it's a legitimate, well, it's always been legitimate, really, but now it's more widely recognized by other people as being like, well, this is where somebody comes from. They get noticed, it goes here, it goes there, or they keep it all their own way, however they do it. I love that you were talking to people that have been there since the early days of really self-publishing comics to walk you through it. So that's really cool.
I mean, and these are guys who would have had to get like film made. They would have to go to a pre-press shop and get like their film shot, and then courier their film to their pressmen to burn plates. Like now we email PDFs and they print it for you. I mean, this is like you would have to go down there and like select paper samples and do press checks. Like sit down with your iLoop, and I did that when I started. So it had all moved digital. I think I might have started graphic design at the perfect time, because I learned the physical way to do it, and then the computers took over, and I've been able to keep up with computers ever since. But I still know where the ink meets the paper. I understand the offset and offset lithography. Like I know what right read emulsion down means, and nobody, it doesn't really matter anymore because it's direct to plate. But like, I own an iLoop. You know what I mean? Like I'll do, when I do press checks, I will iLoop things. So, and I know what old shitty comic book presses used to be, and I know how to make comics look old and shitty by digital means, which was something that I wanted Lamano to look like. So that was one of the decisions that I wanted. I really wanted to, when I figured the story out, it ultimately, this luchador story ultimately became about identity and kind of like who you get to be, and kind of like my internalized meditations on the respectability politics of the Chicano diaspora, right? Like who gets to be Latino, who gets to be Chicano, like all of these kind of like, as a like no sabe kid, entiendo pero no habla bien. Like as a no sabe kid, like,
that's exactly how I grew up, man.
Yeah, and so it's like, do I get to be Latino? Like, but I'm like Chicano, so I'm not Mexican because I was born here. All these kind of like all of that internalized respectability politics and the fucking colorism of Mexican culture and all of that shit. Like, I wanted to address that
very much
in a way that like themes of identity could orbit around lucha libre because of the masks, right? And so and the kind of class system that exists within like the structure, the bifurcation of rudos and technicos, and the like championships, like the stratification of like class structure and identity could be distilled into like lucha libre very easily. So I was like, that's what I want to do with this. But I wanted it to like look and feel and smell like a 60s comic book, because to me, the lucha libre heyday, la lucha heyday was the 1960s in Mexico, right? Like when El Santo,
film and comics,
comics, TV shows, endorsement deals, so I wanted it to like look and feel like the 60s. And so what I also then had a realization was like, and I got this kind of the idea, the seeds of this started with Darwin Cook's New Frontier collected editions, because in the back matter, Darwin Cook had drawn some New Frontier story pages or character designs like Jack Kirby. And Darwin said, I had thought originally I wanted to draw this comic like an homage, like of Jack Kirby art, but I realized what a dumb idea that was, so I just kind of did my own style. But in that moment, when I saw that, I was like, that would be great to do this 60s comic like a 60s comic, like literally just take that Marvel house style and do it. And then I had the idea or the realization that like I could appropriate this kind of paragon of white male fantasy, the superhero comic, and I could palette shift it and appropriate it to be about Mexican culture, Chicano culture. And now I get the meta commentary of that appropriation on top of the actual story that I want to tell. So it is a love letter to 60s comics, which I love, which you can see like the ink behind like blacks, like you can see the overprints and you can see where the film would have been cut. Like I take all this great, and there's picking and the blacks aren't quite 100% and there's off register stuff and all of the process becomes the product, right? Like it is confessing its artifice to you, which, John Updike had this great this great quote on a speech he made where like all great art has a need to confess its artifice, right? It lets you know that it's constructed. And so I
like that. I'd not heard that quote before, but I like that.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah. So, I think the more that you can say this is a story and people accept it as they're no longer judging it with respect to fidelity to reality or how far it may veer from reality, but you're letting them know this is a constructed reality, but with all of these little touches from the color palette to the art style selection to the way that the paper that you know that it's curated reality. You're in good hands, and now you have trust from the audience, right? So as soon as you can elicit trust from the audience, they are free to accept the story on its own terms instead of forcibly trying to voice their expectations on it, most of those rooted in the reality of the real world, which is boring. Like, I don't care, like, so sorry.
No, good.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to use a buzzword here that is kind of definitely overplayed in today's world, but I kind of wanted to touch base on it. For a long time, there was this effort to deconstruct comics, to do a lot of deconstructing. I see this and I hear the way you talk about it as a love letter. I feel like it's reconstructing comics. Like
absolutely,
let's acknowledge
absolutely. Like,
what it is as a medium that makes it good. I
mean, that was a lot of the pushback too. Was that like comics had been at the start? I started in 2011, and kind of comics were at an all-time high, being ashamed to be comic books. Everyone was talking about how cinematic comics were, like, oh, how just like a movie it is. Like, I got movies that are just like movies. I want a comic to be a comic, right? Like, I want a comic book.
That's what Alan Moore says about it.
yeah, exactly. Like, and there's a guy, him and him and Grant Morrison are people who love comics and make comics that only can be comics, right? Like, they're and that's the kind of thing that I wanted to do. Like, I want to do stuff you can only do in a comic book because it's a comic book. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do
celebrate the medium.
Because if I try to emulate, like, I don't want to be a weird simulacrum of a movie. I don't want to be a weird approximation of prose. I want to be a comic book because I am unashamed of it. Again, that kind of like having been told I was supposed to be ashamed of it for so long, and I was told I was supposed to be ashamed for being Chicano for so long, and I was told I was supposed to be ashamed of wrestling for so long. All of these things that I like had been was told I was supposed to be ashamed of. I wanted to celebrate my Chicano culture, lucha libre, 60s comic books, dumb, fun action comics. So in as much as the comic on a very, very like foundational level is about, my feelings about the internalized respectability politics of the Chicano diaspora, I wanted to make it fun and engaging and just move like a comic book used to, because comics should be fun. And I on the surface, it is dudes in mass beating on each other because that's just cool to watch, right? Like, really, exotic, flamboyant costumes, all the pageantry. Yes.
Yeah. I want to touch on that idea that on the surface you have the dudes in costumes, beating up each other, but below the surface you have the diaspora and all that kind of stuff that is part of our experiences growing up, and who we are not just individually, but as a culture.
Yes.
And I was talking to somebody earlier that's just basically like, look, when a lot of times somebody will come to me and be like, I have an idea for a comic book, and it starts with, here's what the powers are. And, the powers are cool. You can have some really original idea that no one's ever had before. That's cool. I love that idea. But what's the story? What's the meaning? How do the characters interact? Like, that's where that depth comes in. That's where you're getting people wanting to know more. Because, yeah, like, I'll be honest, man, your art draws people in. But it's the heart that keeps them there.
I think so. Yeah, I think that, I think if your comic is just a bunch of things that happened, it's just reported, it's not a story, right? Like, you're just like, and then it's like, it's always that like, so that, or therefore, like we've heard those conversations about like how stories should work. But also it's like, I always ask people, like when I'm talking about graphic design for like comic books and stuff, I'm like, what is your story about? And if you're telling me what happens in the story, that's the plot. And that's not what it's about. Like, what it's about are the themes and ultimately what you would want people to feel what they take away once they've done reading your story. What do you want a person to be thinking and feeling once they're done reading your book? Not just, do I want to tell them a story, or do you want to give them an experience? And I want to give them an experience, right? So to me, it's always about like what it's about. It's always about like, or the core of everything is like, because nobody cares about what you write in a comic book, and nobody cares about what you draw in a comic book. What they care about is how they feel about what they've seen and read. So what feeling are you trying to elicit from them? And the more that
I
you
like
can,
that way of putting it.
And the more, thank you. The more you can ask them to feel something, the more involved they will be, and the more work you kind of make them do to like fill in the blanks of what's not there. They'll fill it in with their own experience, and now it's personally. Now they're co-authoring the book with you in a way that is personal and resonant. And that's why I like the abbreviated art style of the Marvel's house style, because not every fold, not every stitch, not every lace is there, but enough is there where you make the rest up in your head, and now you're co-authoring the book with me. And that's why I don't define powers. Like that way, like, it is just like a mysterious promoter and he has a mysterious power. It's unstable molecules, man. They'll be whatever you want them to be. The second we got nanotechnology in the Marvel universe, it just got boring for me. Now it's just magic. Now it's just hand-wavy magic. oh well, nanobots just took care of that. You know what I mean? Like how are they making more
it's
masks?
funny. I literally remember the comic where sorry, no, it's what you just said right now. I literally remember the comic where Tony Stark first like, here is a nanobot suit, and I was like, man, it was actually mid-90s, so it was before it really took off as a thing, and I was like, it makes perfect sense that he would do that. Like if anybody would do it, he would. But once you get away from the clunkiness of the armor going together,
him having to put it on
less,
yeah. Well, it's
like
that's
the fun of it. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I love ill-defined things because people will fill in the blanks, and so there has been like Hollywood talk, and Hollywood types want to know like, well, where does the belt come from, and how does it have power? Okay, here's the like weird mythology in my head when I drew it, but like, don't tell this to anybody.
But we don't need that origin.
Yeah, like we don't need a Darth Vader origin story. He's just bad, and he is like, all you need to know is that he's bad and dangerous, right? Like, I don't need to know he had a rough childhood, So sorry.
No, it's perfect. I want to tell you my favorite, bad Hollywood producer story. My favorite novel series is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. And before he passed away, he was working with producers in America to make a movie version, a big budget movie version, right? And he did an interview that I always remember where he's like sitting down with the American producer and they're trying to hash out what the deal is. And he's like, so the producer's like, so Arthur Dent, he's the hero, right? And he's like, no, he's just present. And then they're like, but his goals are what's going to move the story forward. He just wants it all to end, really. And he's like, okay, but answer this question. Is the end of the story dependent on his presence? And Adams is like, yes. And the producer's like, see, he's the hero. And I'm like, I technically correct, but also he's got the wrong idea. And then Adams passed away, and they hired another writer to finish up based on the American producer's notes. And it feels very disjointed, where you have this character that should not be the superhero of the story saving the day, and it just feels weird, And I don't even just mean at me as a reader of the book. I went with somebody who'd never read the books before, and was like, "Why did he get the girl at the end?" And it's like, I don't know. He doesn't get her in the books. I just always think about that. I think about like it's hard to get somebody who has a different background in movies to understand the ins and outs of storytelling. And I can see the desire to make an origin.
Yeah, well, none of them know what's going to work. They only know what has worked. And so they try to like post-mortem, and they always take the wrong, messages from, movie. Like they saw the success of Barbie, and they're like, rather than saying, hey, we need to like let women write and direct their own stories, they looked at the success of Barbie.
They're like, toy movies.
We need more toy movies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just so dumb. Yeah. Because hey man, like they're driving nicer cars than me, so how could I argue? So I do hold Lamano close, and so when these Hollywood conversations happen, I try to make sure everyone knows why I made the book. I was extremely dissatisfied with the way that like Mexican culture was portrayed in the American pop culture, especially like luchadors, who are my heroes. But now every time you see one in an American movie, they're kind of like a punchline and a joke. And I felt that was very disrespectful. Yep. Whenever you see a Mexican in an American movie, they're always kind of like dim-witted and kind of goofy. All stories about Mexicans are about poverty or violence, the border and the cartels.
The sepia tone.
The Mexico filter, all of that. So I wanted the bright, vibrant hues of my culture. I wanted the dynamism of lucha libre. I wanted to treat the sport with respect. I wanted to treat my culture with respect. And so I have a moral obligation to not become the thing that I hate, but not allow Hollywood to make my story the exact opposite of why I made it. And I also, much like we're talking about Barbie, I can't let it get screwed up, because if they make my movie or they make my TV show, whatever it is, and they note it to death, and they make Arthur Dent the hero, right? Or they do some dumb thing that they don't understand Chicano culture. They do something, overtly well-meaning Anglo behavior that will gut and diminish the reality of what I was trying to do. If they do that and then it doesn't work, they won't think, hey, maybe producers should stop making notes. What they'll do is go, oh, Chicano stories don't work, and then you and all of my other friends don't get your projects realized for 20 more years. So I have a moral responsibility to make sure that it gets done in a way that will be resonant with our community, so that more things can get made. Because if I allow them to bastardize it and turn it into something it's not, its failure will be used as ammunition to shoot down 1,000 good ideas from my culture. That will never happen, because these are people who don't know what has worked or what will work. They only know what has worked. So yeah, man, sorry.
And even then, the what has worked is like very subjective. I remember famously the reason. Yeah, the reason it was so long before we had a female superhero movie was because, Supergirl failed in the 80s and Catwoman failed in the early 2000s. So that automatically means women can't be the main character of an action film. It's like, those are just bad movies. Exactly. All right. So what's Lamano's origin? I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah. So we're trying to get toward Marvel. Let me see if I can get there in a hurry. So I did Lamano for a bunch of years. No rush, man.
Look, hey, I'm enjoying the journey. Take us along.
How long do these usually go for anyway? Like, I don't want to take up too much.
We often go for about an hour, sometimes a little below, sometimes a little bit above. Okay. But my thing is I do want to take a stop every once in a while just to get into your head, I guess, because I'm really, like I said, I've known you for a while, right? But I don't think we've ever really had a conversation like this before. And I'm really enjoying learning this side of you, and also not just that, but how it can help upcoming creators, because I think this is good stuff to keep in mind, not just the have showy art and get noticed. It's like, where are you going with it? And that's why I think it's important. So you got Lamano as an idea.
So the book comes out. You have to start your own publishing company to be in previews. So I did that. I got into previews for the first 2 issues, but didn't quite hit my numbers. So then I was self-distributing and self-publishing for the remainder of the issues. Ultimately, I got to, my 6-issue story arc wrapped up. I did a Kickstarter for a trade paperback that was all 6 issues in English on one side, all 6 issues in Spanish on the other side. It was a flip book. I had a championship belt around. It was always bells and whistles. It was it was a robust Kickstarter that funded. And so at that point, right when I started, right before God, this requires a little bit of backing up. So right before I started working for Todd, I had met with Top Cow. And they liked me, and they wanted to maybe do something with me. And when I got the job with Todd, I had to let Top Cow know I was no longer available for whatever project they had me for. But I had remained friendly with the people over there for a long time, staying in touch. Eventually, Henry Barajas ended up working there, so he knew people there. And so when he pitched his project for La Voz de Mayo, they pitched me as the artist for it. They're like, "Hey man, have you ever heard of this guy J Gonzo? You should have him draw your book." And Henry was like, "Yeah, no, he's like my friend." So he called me, he was literally in the meeting and called me. He's like, "Hey man, do you want to draw this book?" I'm like, "Sure." So we did that, and then coincidentally, Lamano, the last issue of Lamano and the last issue of La Voz de Mayo came out the same month. And I was going to go on this victory tour, signing Lamano, selling La Vozes. Me and Henry were going to do 13 cons in a year, whatever. And that was it. We finished in November of 2019, and so by March there were no more cons. And so, it had whatever success it had. I did my Kickstarter for the trade paperback, and at that point, Top Cow saw the success of that Kickstarter. Was like, "Hey, do you want to do an English only version for the direct market?" And so my trade paperback came out through Image at the end of 2020, maybe 2021. I think it was 2021, or maybe I don't know. So anyway. It came out. So now my book is out in the world beyond my control. Up until that point, I'd sold most of the people who had my comic had bought them from me. I guess a few thousand people bought issue 1, via or issue 1 and 2 via Diamond previews. But from that point on, most people who were still keeping up with it were getting them from me. But now my book is out in Image, and it's out there, it's everywhere, and so my people are seeing it, and one of which was an editor for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I was doing a show in Long Beach, and a guy came up to me at the show and was like, "Hey, man, I'm the editor on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles," which is people say a lot of things at cons, and I'm always nice to them. And I was I will always give them my email address. Hey, just email me. Here's my email address, And I feel like
the way you say that is the way people react to me when I start introducing myself. They're like, "Sure, you who you say you are, okay."
Yeah, right. It's you go to shows, you talk to people, everybody loves you, everybody can't wait to work with you. nobody calls or emails you. It's like, it's just the way it goes. So or they want to give you $5 to draw a whole book for them. It's like, I got a 100-page novel, I got $5 for you. Or 100-page graphic novel, I got $5. I'm like, well, I can't draw a 100-page graphic novel for $5. But like, well, when it becomes a movie, we'll split everything 50-50. And you're just like, it's never becoming a movie. So I can't pay my bills with that kind of with that kind of potential. So people like what I did. People wanted to work with me, but nobody was really pulling the trigger on calling me until maybe 3-4 months later. I guess it was, God, I'm trying to think when it was. Yeah, so the Turtles, you hit me up like, hey man, did you still want to do the turtle cover? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm not going to say no to that. So I did that, and I pitched. Well, it was toward Christmas time, and they're like, I was like, I'll get you thumbnails, and then you guys can approve whatever, and then I'll move forward on them. And I was a little late getting them thumbnails due to some family issues that were happening, and so I got the thumbnails and they were gone. And what I had thumbnailed them was one kind of standard turtles on a rooftop looking tough, right? And then I thought about it. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what everyone does, And then I was like, I kind of thought about it, like, man, everybody kind of does that. And then I thought, this guy's only ever seen La Mano. He's only ever seen my bright ass Chicano comic, lucha libre, full on, like I should really deliver on something that kind of underscores the promise of who I am, right? Like, I should put me into the Turtles as opposed to like just doing what I think the Turtles want. So because they can have anybody draw turtles, and they're asking me, so like, what is it I can do that nobody else does? So I drew this Dia de los Muertos Calavera of Leonardo, swords crossed, marigolds behind him, and I sent it off to them along with the other rooftop, them all standing there, and Leatherhead in the background and stuff. And I didn't hear anything back, and I was like, oh man, they left on vacation, and I had signed a contract that said I was going to be done by January like 10th or something. And I'm like, I gotta do something, because like
I've seen those contracts.
Yeah, and so like, I don't want to, like, this is my first time working with like that kind of publisher. I'd done a few like image covers for other friends or whatever. Like, I hadn't really done anything major. Made a pin up here and there,
not for the publisher directly.
Where I could like call the person who owned the company, essentially. This was like IDW is like a real publisher, so I'm like, I can't mess this up. So I just inked and colored the what I thought was a safe one, them on the rooftop. Boom, there you go. But when I send Leonardo off with the day that did Leonardo, I go, hey man, if you like this, we could also do all 4 of them. So we could do all 4 turtles. And so they come back, and in their inbox they've got a drawn, colored, ready to go cover from me. And I'm like, cool. And they were stoked to have it. And they're like, hey man, we dig this cover. We're totally going to use it. But we fucking love these Day of the Dead turtles. Let's do all 4 of them. So I turned one cover into 5. Yeah. And then it was like, so I turned one cover into 5. So I've like quintupled my workload, which is fine. But then at some point,
and your paycheck,
as they start, that was great too. As I start turning them in, they keep wanting them sooner and sooner. Because at first they're like, oh, can we get these by July? I'm like, no problem. I do the first one, pencil ink, but we got to get past Nickelodeon. So like, I'm just like, I want to make sure Nickelodeon's cool with this. I'm going to pencil it, send them the pencils. They love the pencils. Okay, I'm going to ink it, send them the inks. They love the inks. All right, I'm going to color it. It's going to be my bright ass Chicano colors. Send it to them. They love it. Cool. And they're like, actually, you think we get those by the end of June now? I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. So like, I move my schedule up. I turn in the second one. Hey, can we get that like mid-June now? I'm like, okay, like we're getting kind of tight. Turn in like my third one, and they're like, hey, can we get this like by end of May? We're trying to get it in this other catalog, yada yada. I'm like, listen guys, yes, but this is it. I cannot go any closer. So I ended up doing like, like
can you get it
my
by
own
tomorrow?
success. Yeah, like victim of my own success, right? Like they were so cool that they wanted to show them off, that they kept asking for them sooner and sooner and sooner. So rather than the 6 months I had to do 4 covers, it turned into like 4 months to like, it was still a month to cover. It was not bad.
Yeah.
But it's definitely
still a turnaround for something you didn't expect to have that turnaround,
It still kept creeping my direction. I was losing daylight as it was, doing well. So did that, and then, did a bunch of other covers for people. And once the Turtles happened, like once issue 3 came out that year. So 1 came out, it was like the first of the issue that, Raphael was first. People dug it, but it was on the kid book, and not that many people like knew that they were a set. Second one comes out, a few more people are like, oh, this is cool, like I'm getting a little more followers on social medias, what have you. The third one was the one that was the cover, an alternate cover for the Kevin Eastman book, which was the Last Ronin 2. And when that hit stands, it just boom, like my whole life blew up. And within
everybody's like, where are the rest of these?
Kind of, yeah. And now they're having to go back and buy the Raphael one, which was on a kid's book, which was under ordered because no one knew they were going to be a set.
It was a kid's book.
And it's a kid's book and nobody buys a kid book. Like less people buy the kid's book. And so what's funny is to this day, when people have all four of them, I ask them how much they paid for the Raphael. It's around between $20 and $50 is usually what people have paid for this like $3.99 kids book. So it's funny that that's the more valuable one because it's the lowest run. But in about like a month after the last one came, and I think it was after the fourth one. The talent scout for Marvel, like just, slid into my DMs on Instagram. It was like, hey man, I'm the talent scout at Marvel. Do you ever think you want to do some Marvel work? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so
I want to pause you right there real quick.
Yeah.
Because we said at the beginning of this, people are like, hey, you worked at Marvel. How can you get me in? People ask me the same question. And I always tell them the same thing. 25 years ago, you could have sent a portfolio and just hoped maybe they'll notice it. They don't do that anymore. No, they call you. And basically it's like this. If you want to work somewhere, you have to make your own stuff. You have to make your own inroads. You have to do this stuff. And then, hey, if they like it, they'll give you a call. And if not, you still have a career going.
Yeah. There's guys whose job it is just to find you. People who do
Talent
things.
agents. Scouts.
Yeah. People who do things or people who make decisions about who does things like to do things with people who do things. So do things, right? Like make stuff, right? So if you want to be in comics, if you're looking to get into comics, make your own comic. Congratulations, you're in comics. If you want to make comics for a big company, make your own comics until they notice you. Then you make, there's no way into comics that doesn't involve you making your own comics unless you're a tremendous, undeniable talent, right? There are those people who you look at, like, you can look at 2 pages and go, this guy's ready to go. But those are.
Yeah, but even then they have to be noticed somewhere. So even if they didn't publish a comic, they'd be noticed through Instagram or they'd be noticed through TikTok. And that's either way, they had to make something. Yeah. Yeah,
you got to make a thing. And honestly, and then also what I learned was when I was, back in like 98, when my friends were inking and I was trying to get into comics, before McFarlane, before all of that stuff, I had a portfolio that I wanted to show my full range of what I could do. And I could do anything for anybody. If Marvel, DC had asked me to, emulate Mignola, emulate Jim Lee, whatever they wanted, I was going to do it for them. Then I spent a decade making my own book and kind of figuring out my own voice. So much so that when the Turtles asked me to do a cover for them, I had a thing I could apply to that because that's me on the page there. And I could draw like I mean it. And when Marvel finally did have a project for me, they're like, hey, can we get a Day of the Dead Skull, Robbie Reyes from you? And like when Marvel first was like, hey, we got a job for you, I kind of was like, holy crap, like, I don't know if I can deliver. And then they told me what the assignment was. Like, hey, we want a Day of the Dead Robbie Reyes. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like, and so, I was me so long at that point, 15-ish years, like I just been doing stuff that I wanted to do, just stuff that I loved. And everything I had, I loved into existence. And so you can smell the love coming off of that. And so by the time Marvel asked me to do something for them, all they wanted me to do was be me. And like, no one's going to out me. So I have no competition. Right. So if they want that, they come to me and I give it to them. So, but once the Marvel stuff hit the shelves, it was just crazy, man. Like the Marvel made a big announcement about that thing right before San Diego, like four-ish days before San Diego. And by the time I got to San Diego, everybody knew who I was. Like, from me being able to like walk around and just kind of like, I know a good amount of people, just complete strangers, like, hey, Gonzo. It was insane. Like just that tipping point of like overnight, my life was different, and it's like me, I used to be at San Diego peddling my wares. I'm doing turtle books. I'm doing image books. Like I'm doing stuff, right? Like I have like, hey, I'm the guy who did this. I did that. I did that. And now I had this calling card where like, yeah, I'm the guy who did the Day of the Dead Robbie Reyes, and just everybody knew who that was. And so, I ended up like, not to talk too much business, but I ended up booking like at that San Diego, I booked like 8 or 9 jobs, all of which were at parties or like swimming pools or bars or whatever. Like at no point did I ask anybody, hey, do you have any work for me? And then start to show them my stuff. Literally every job I got was some other friend of mine or someone who knew me going, hey man, I saw that Robbie Reyes cover, the thing's dope. And then someone else going, oh, what did you do? And I'm like, oh, I did this thing. And I'd show it to them on my phone. And they'd be like, holy shit, do you want to do a Conan cover? Do you want to do a Toxic Avenger cover? Do you want to like just people just hitting me up for jobs, like at bars and parties, and
wait. Tell me there's a Day of the Dead Toxic Avenger cover, because I've not seen that.
There isn't, like, so I'm trying to not just be the Dia de los Muertos guy. There are I did a pinup and I did a cover.
That's the pitfall.
Yeah.
The pitfall of that is that you get really successful for one specific thing, and everybody wants to see more of that one thing.
Well,
and that's
Marvel
why
did,
even if that even if that got you noticed before La Mano, I love that La Mano came out first, because then you still have This Is What I Can Do. But all that being said, I want to see a Day of the Dead Toxie now.
That would be fun to do. Maybe I'll talk him into. I was just talking to him about maybe doing another cover. Like I saw them. I'm trying to think what show I saw them at, but I saw those guys a little while ago, and we talked about doing another cover. But I also like, my Conan cover is like weird. Like, it's like there's like a kind of my more realistic comic-y style, but then there's like a real iconographic snake around him and stuff, and people dug it. Like, and what I've heard is, so Marvel also gave me some stuff that like I did a Ghost Rider 2099 cover, and it's like, even though it's not Calavera stuff, when you see like my Moon Knight cover, or you see like my Daredevil cover or whatever, it's like people, shop owners have told me, they're like, dude, I can tell your cover just sitting on the shelves. Like, I know it's yours. Even if it's not a skull, I know that you did it. So I'm glad that I have that kind of like recognition where like I've developed an artistic voice so clearly that even when I'm drawing an Aliens cover, people are like, oh, that's a Gonzo Aliens cover, So it's a cool position to be in. I'm getting to do some fun stuff, and I'm having a good time, and I'm not stressed about any of it because, like I said, it's just, everyone just wants me to be me now. Like, I'm not worried about like whether or not I can deliver. I'm not worried about like what it is they want from me, or if I'm going to mess it up. It's like, as long as I'm being me, I feel like I can't mess it up, So it's been a really good time. I'm a little caught up right now, and I'm trying to catch up on some outstanding projects. So I haven't been pushing to do a ton of covers for people lately. I'm trying to catch up on my own stuff, doing more La Mano, getting that second series finally finished. So I'm on issue 1 of series 2. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask a scary question. It sounds like most of the covers and most of these projects will be people approaching you, except for, of course, La Mano, which is your baby. Somebody who's not approached you yet that you would want to do, like, oh, I'd love to do that, either as a book or as a poster or as a cover. I'm curious, is there one out there that would be your white whale? Because I would do that.
There's a couple of things that that I've put my name out there. Like, I've let them know. I haven't done anything for DC yet, so I would love to do. Here's the thing: is like, I don't give a shit about Batman. Like, I really just don't. Like, I know so many people like want to do something with Batman. Yeah,
I'm not a Batman fan either, but your art style would look amazing. Like, I'm not a big Batman fan, but your art style would look amazing. I'm
fine with the idea of him, but I don't have a Batman pitch. Like, I'm not trying to like, so, with
That's
DC,
fair.
I would love to do, like, they're doing fun stuff now, and I would love to do some of their like completely offbeat characters, right? Like, I have literally in my head right now, I have a full Buona Beast pitch ready to go. So as soon as like I'm in good with DC, like, I'm going to pitch that idea. So, and I love, I had this like me and Chris Sims, who's a podcaster on War Rocket Ajax. He and I had a Batman in Legion era Batman story where it's like, because there's a Silver Age Batman who came back from the future, from the third. His name was Brain Taylor. He's been in like 2 issues. I think Morrison might have used him maybe more recently, but like this guy who like came back from the Legion era, from like 31st century, comes back, has an adventure with Batman, then goes back and just like fucks off back to the 31st century. So we wanted to tell his origin story, and it involved like a Race Bannon-esque cooned warrior that becomes Robin, right? So the Batman is this like younger kid, and then Robin is this just giant coon, like this pink skinned coon that's like ready to kick ass. And then the impetus for the story was going to be this archaeological like dig on another planet, and the person who hires them to do that was going to be this like little guy. And then at the end of everything, when that guy like kind of sacrifices himself, and like the guy Brain finally becomes Batman, we were going to find out that old guy that was there, that died, that sacrificed, was an old man Batmite. Like they were going to try to save him and pull open his shirt, and you would see a little Batmite symbol on there. And so we had like old man Batmite. We had like, there was some really fun stuff in there. So like all that Silver Age shit, man, I love that. Like, that's the stuff I would love to do. Like, I don't want to do, I think DC's like lightening up a little bit recently. So it might be in the cards, but like they were so serious for so long. I think Zack Snyder really did a number on that whole company. So I'm glad they're lightening up, and eventually, I mean, they know who I am. I know they know who I am. I know that my name has been passed to a handful of editors over there. I also know that it took Marvel a full calendar year from reaching out to me to giving me an actual assignment. So I would imagine at some point DC will reach out to me. I will do something for them eventually. So there's that. I'm trying to think if I should talk about this. There were two cartoons recently.
Before you continue, I'm enjoying these stories, but I also don't want to put your jobs at risk. So if you can talk about it, I'd love to hear it.
I will talk about these in the vaguest of terms. There is a couple of companies that have two comic book properties or two cartoon properties that I absolutely love as a child, and I am in the luxury position of which now where I have the emails and access to the people who make the decisions about those things. So I reached out and said, hey, if you want to cover, let me know, because I fucking love that property. And I told those are out there in the wind happening. And those are I'm trying to think. Those are like 70s and 80s cartoons. Very hold on a sec. I'm gonna plug something in real quick here. Those are two 80s properties that are not super well known, but enough where hold on, I'm sorry, I might lose my internet in a second.
So you heard it here. It's going to be The Snorks by J Gonzo.
Yeah, it's absolutely. No, someone has the Pac-Man cartoon license. I'm sure of it. So, all right, there we go.
I believe it. I was actually telling my teenage students about The Snorks, and they were like, "What?"
I remember the comic book that had the image of all the new cartoons coming when the Snorks were in there. It's a 2-page spread advertisement that ABC did in like 83, 82, something like that. Yeah, the Snorks sucked. Yeah. Even as a child, I was just a little too old for that to appeal to me.
I love that show, man. I saw it as like a better version of the Smurfs, but then again, I was a weird kid.
Yeah, I could not get I couldn't get past the but I think you're like a tiny bit younger than me though, aren't you? Like how old are you? If you don't
yeah, it's just how I have to think about it. How old am I? 45.
Okay, yeah, you're like 6 years younger than I am, so that seems about right. Yeah, I was probably, honestly, when the Snorks came out, I was probably like 3 or 4 years away from smoking. So yeah, I mean, I definitely
yeah. That's like me with Power Rangers. When Power Rangers really hit big, I was a bit old for Power Rangers, but like everybody else was like totally into it, so I was like, eh.
Yeah.
But anyway, the idea though that you could have that freedom of not only working on your own stuff, but also being able to like pursue something you'd like, but also getting calls from people. Like it's nice. I imagine it's a bit of a double-edged sword as you get too many projects at once, but like at the same time, it's a nice problem to have, you know?
But yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really content with the idea of like kind of settling into. Ironically, I was like settling into like kind of semi-retirement where I was going to I was kind of settling in the idea of like semi-retirement, which was going to be me getting like a part-time job. Like I was going to try to teach and then do comics on the side and just kind of like, do something that I could do until I died essentially. And I literally was talking to a department head and we talked about the classes I was going to teach and we yada yada. It was all it was all about to happen. That was on a Sunday. And then like that Wednesday was when Marvel was like, hey, we got your first gig for you. And so, so I'm just enjoying it. It's all just, this is all kind of like bonus time for me. So I'm just having fun. And as soon as it's not fun, I won't do it anymore. It's allowed me like some opportunities to like do stuff I never thought I'd be able to do. And like having this level of success at 50 is a weird kind of, like animal, right? Like to be like, yeah, it's because I've lived a whole life, man. Like I've raised children, I've done all these things, and so I don't hang too much of who I am on my bank account or the jobs I'm doing. I really just want to have fun, as a guy who's been able to like be a pirate this long and kind of make a living at it. I just know that like it'll work out. If all of this stuff goes away, I'll figure the next thing out and then I'll make that work or whatever, I'm going to do this as long as it's fun and I'm having a great time. Like it's not lost on me that I can just email certain people now and ask and like, literally just ask about jobs. Like, hey, can I do that? And a lot of times they say yes. And whereas before, like, that person would not have answered my email. Like I would not be talking to them at a party. Like, it took a long time to get here, and so now that I'm unexpectedly here, I'm having a blast.
Honestly, I can't fault you for any of that, because it's a beautiful experience to be in, and I love whenever I run into you in San Diego and stuff, and I see those parties with those pool tops and everything. The pools on rooftops and stuff, and it's this is I want to say living the life, but I mean, admittedly, all those movie guys make all that extra money, but you're doing what you enjoy, and that's what's important. And it's funny, I often ask people, creatives, what is something you would tell people who want to do this kind of stuff? But literally everything you've said has been good advice for people to, whether it's, here's what I did, to here's the philosophy of it. I think it works really well.
Yeah, my overall advice these days,
thoughts out there to a place where people can hear it.
Well, I'm trying to consolidate them into a thing, but like my overall advice, like to anyone, whenever I talk at cons and someone comes by with a portfolio and stuff, is just draw like you mean it. There's no way around it, right? Like, that's first and foremost, draw like you mean it. And then my second bit of advice is like get a wife or partner or spouse or whatever who has a full real job. Like that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, I always say that my success in comics is more a testament to my stubbornness than it is my skills or talent, right? Like I just refuse to do anything but that, and the world will let you know what it wants from you. Like if you're creative, you keep making stuff, eventually you'll see the thing that people resonates with people. You can do that. Like, but the second you try to like, make a play for money, or you think like, oh, this is going to sell a bunch, or this is going to be huge, like that's going to do nothing. It's always going to be some dumb little thing you just thought was like, oh, this was fun, and you did it, and you throw it out there. You're like, that's it. That's the thing I'm doing.
The little sketch of it, the sketch of a turtle as a calavera. That's all you do, and then that just.
Yeah, I mean, it was that. It was me going like, this will be fun. I honestly didn't even think they would do it. I thought it would be a little too like macabre for them, right? Like, it's a skull, it's a skeleton. It's like I realized, like I didn't want to have to like explain the cultural significance of it or anything like that. But luckily, man, people dug it. So it's just draw like you mean it, and the rest will happen. Like, because at the end of the day, if you can't love the creation process, if you can't love being at the artboard, then you're gonna hate being a comic artist, because the money and the cons and the signings and all of that, like getting flown to India to go do a show or whatever, like all of that stuff is such a tiny part of my life. What the majority of my life is me at the artboard.
Backtrack.
Yes.
What was that about flying to India?
I'm doing a show in India. So the Hyderabad Comic Con is happening October 31st through November 2nd. I will be a guest there. If you're in Hyderabad, India, come by. I will be signing stuff. But yeah, it's like that's ridiculous.
So cool,
like,
honestly.
That I'm a guy who draws draws skulls all the time, and because of that, I'm a guest at a show in India. And then I'm going from India, I'm going to England, and I'm doing Thought Bubble.
Okay.
A couple of weeks later, I'm going to spend a week in London seeing my daughter, and then I'm going to go up to Thought Bubble and do that. But it's just, it's like, but yeah, it's super cool. Like, don't believe me, like being a guest, like for a show in India is beyond my wildest dreams as far as success goes as an artist. Like, because I'm a guy who just doodles nonsense. Like I get to go, like, like I'm sitting in my studio right now, and every day I walk in here, I'm like, I drew this into existence, right? Like this art studio that I own, like I manifest by like my dumb little drawing. So, yeah, man, but like this stuff and the trips and all of that are such a small part of my life. 95% of it is me at the artboard making the art. And so if I can't love that, and I only love the cons and the pool parties and all of that stuff, if I I'm going to be miserable 95% of my life for these like little hits of 5% like fun. And I'm a guy who's tried really hard to make it to where the majority of my life is enjoyable. And, me in the creation process, I love. It's like, even if I was doing it for 5 people who bought my comic books, as opposed to, 10,000 or whatever it is, I'm still going to make it the best of my ability, because I love that part of it. I love the making it to the best of my ability part of it. And for a long time, that was the only joy. That was the only thing I was getting out of the comic, was the joy of creating it. But eventually, it turned into what it's turned into. So, yeah, man, like my advice to artists is like, love being at the artboard, love the creation process, love what you make into existence, and people will be able to smell the love coming off of that. So, draw like you mean it.
So really love something enough that people can smell you. I like that advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask a real quick question. If somebody is not able to see you in India or London, how can people find you online?
Right now I don't have a website, so just go to my Instagram. Is usually it's like J Gonzo Art, the letter J, Gonzo Art, all one word, no underscores. Follow me there. I have a Twitter, and I think I'm J Gonzo Art on Blue Sky as well. Like, you can find me. Yeah, just Blue Sky or Twitter.
Blue Sky too. Yeah.
Blue Sky or Instagram are the two. J Gonzo Arts, and then Twitter. I think I'm like Lamano Comic or something like that. But like, don't go to Twitter. It's bad. Like, go to Instagram.
Yeah, I never liked using Twitter before, and now I feel like I don't have to. So I feel much better.
Yeah, definitely.
But I wanted to kind of to bring this to a close, let people know where they can find you. I also wanted to point out that we do at My Primos like supporting artists of all kinds. For example, I've been wearing this shirt this whole time. This is by GGTs. Primo Aaron made these. He's at ggts.co, and he's also on Instagram as well, actually. I love seeing artists like do what they like and then take off.
I'm wearing I've got a Jesse Hernandez shirt on.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So that's Jesse Hernandez, beautiful. Urban Aztec. Yeah, give him a follow. He's a good guy too.
Definitely. Yep. Yeah. And then while we're at people to follow, I am at Kevin Garcia _com on Instagram and TikTok. But we are My Primos Podcast, which I hope you will listen to after you've already heard the whole thing. And then please be following us. We lost for a while our main Instagram account to pirates, but we got it back. All right.
That's right.
Overcame them. So yeah. So follow us at My Primos Podcast on Instagram, where we have, all the good stuff and have thankfully gotten our name back. There we have all of our podcast related stuff. But then we also have at My Primos Productions, which is just all the other thoughts we have on life. And also, again, promoting all of our artists, friends. And when I say artists, I mean writers, I mean creators, I mean artists. It's just the whole gamut of it is we just love celebrating the arts and we love celebrating our Primos. So, Gonzo, thank you so much for being a guest here. And again, we need to retroactively make you a guest again. All right?
Definitely.
Just so that I can say that was accurate.
All right.
Oh, man. Thank you for that. Thank you, Primos. Just remember, wherever you are a Primo. We out.
Entre espinar salta.